These are the most expensive homes in Singapore. They're called Good Class Bungalows, or GCBs, packed with private wine cellars and giant pools. They're selling for tens of millions of dollars.
Let me bring you to the house.
And real estate agent Julian Yip has seen the ultra-rich fighting to get one.
The owner even installed a chandelier inside the master bathroom.
That's because Singapore is a tiny island country of just 281 square miles, and the government owns 90% of the land. So having a home this size on private land is very rare.
Wow, look at the Ferrari! Yeah. This is like every Singaporean wet dream, you know. Look at that!
That's Si Ling, a YouTuber here in Singapore.
Can you imagine in Singapore we have land scarcity and then we have houses as big as these?
As real estate markets in other big cities have dropped globally, she's seen private home prices in Singapore soar.
Yeah, wipe my saliva off my face.
In 2019, a GCB reportedly sold for $170 million US, more than twice the previous record.
For a period of 2 years, we almost doubled.
So what does the rising price of GCBs mean for the rest of Singapore's citizens? We visited Good Class Bungalows across Singapore to find out. GCBs date all the way back to the 1800s. The low-rise homes were known as early Singaporean bungalows. Over time, the styles evolved, as ownership shifted between European officials and wealthy Chinese merchants and businessmen. When Singapore got its independence in 1965, GCBs started moving inland and began replacing colonial designs with more modern ones. The Singaporean government coined the term Good Class Bungalow in the early 1980s, and it set all kinds of building rules to preserve the low-rise style of traditional GCBs.
We have to follow a very strict construction policy to make sure that it is exclusive and prestigious.
Less than 0.5% of Singapore's population owns a GCB, and the government has designated just 39 areas of the island for the prestigious homes.
So it's really about the land that they're on.
That's Amanda Goh, a real estate reporter for Insider.
And they're also in very prime areas in central Singapore.
This GCB is in Bukit Sedap, not far from Nassim Road, Singapore's Billionaire's Row. This home is on the market for $48.7 million, nearly double the average price of a GCB in 2022. The first rule for a home to be considered a GCB is the property has to be at least 1,400 square meters, and the building itself must occupy 40% of the land.
Let me bring you to the house.
This brand new construction has 6 bedrooms and 7 full bathrooms.
We have a reading room here. We have a very, very huge dry kitchen over here. It is actually a pull down. Okay. Next to the dry kitchen, we actually have a wet kitchen here. We call it the Asian cooking kitchen. Outside this dining area, the owner actually created an alfresco dining area.
Most buyers require a pool and garden in a GCB.
Recently, the newer built ones, they can allow parking of more than 20 cars.
Also, according to those government rules, the house has to be built at least 3 meters from the property wall. So even if houses are tight, they won't be built back to back. Another restriction, the building itself can't be over 2 stories high. Garages, basements, and attics don't count. So owners can get creative to make buildings feel massive despite these rules.
We have a full basement here. We have an 8,000 bottle wine cellar. And next to the wine cellar, we have this little mini theater. We are going up to the 3rd floor of the house.
This 3rd story is shorter, so it can count as an attic.
Okay, the junior master bedroom is huge. It's like a piece of art over here. This is the master bathroom. And if you notice, the owner even installed a chandelier inside the master bathroom.
While this home costs a lot, some price tags go even higher. In 2019, a GCB on Nassim Road set a record, selling for $170 million.
So behind me is the house that TikTok CEO of Singapore recently bought for $86 million.
YouTuber Si Ling took us around the prestigious District 10.
I'm just an Asian. I don't have the crazy and rich part. Or maybe just a crazy Asian, no rich. You don't see any buildings here, right? I'm guessing it's because you are getting nearer to like the rich people area. Yes, look at all this greenery. Oh, look at that house. It's so nice.
Flanked by the Singapore Botanic Gardens and the famous shopping street, Orchard Road, this area has one of the highest concentrations of good class bungalows.
See, this is my dream, guys. Welcome to my dreamland. Something I noticed about GCB houses like this, right, is that they are blocked by a lot of trees because I think rich people really value their privacy. Like, it's really very secluded. The walls are really high.
Although Singapore is one of the richest countries in Asia,
We're talking about tens and millions of money, you know, it's not something that's easily accessible to the average person here.
at this price tag, Julian says only Singapore's top 3 to 5% can afford these homes. Some owners are newly rich, and others come from families that have been wealthy for generations.
Mostly businessmen, high professionals, doctors, lawyers, etc. Yeah.
We're talking the children of a former Singaporean president, the billionaire CEO of Razer, and the co-founder of Secret Lab.
Shi Hong, which is the co-founder of the Sichuan hot pot chain Haidilao International, and is also the TikTok CEO, Shou Ziqiu.
So why exactly do GCB's prices continue to climb, while other high-end housing markets around the world are falling? Well, it's as simple as supply and demand. People really want a GCB, but there aren't a lot of them. Singapore is already a tiny country, and the government owns 90% of the island. Much of the land went to public housing that citizens can own for a fixed 99-year period before it goes back to the government. But they can't pass it down through generations after that. For private land, however, there's no time limit to ownership.
Therefore, they see property as a good way to kind of grow their wealth.
So like the homes can only appreciate over time.
And the government is unlikely to sell more land to the private market anytime soon.
What it means is the existing pool of supplies will be like that forever.
And also very much sought after, which drives up prices.
Today, there are only around 2,500 to 2,800 GCBs on the island, and they hardly ever go up for sale.
There are even years whereby there are less than 20 in the market. It makes me feel like I want to earn more money, so I can afford one myself.
The price and prestige also makes it really hard for real estate agents like Julian to sell these homes.
We do have owners that treasure privacy. Some sellers want to sell but do not want you to market the property. How am I going to sell then? We call it our pocket listings.
With all this exclusivity, GCB prices just keep soaring. Julian said the cost of a GCB per square foot in some areas rose by nearly $600 in just the last year.
Maybe more than 50%. Almost doubled for 2 years. From the pandemic, when everybody has to work from home, everybody starts to appreciate space.
And while housing markets globally are slumping, Singapore's is still climbing, up 14% from the previous year.
I think we have one of the lowest corporate taxes in the world, so that attracts a lot of rich people.
The Singaporean government has tried to cool the market by introducing restrictions on loans and more taxes on second homes, but prices are still expected to rise slightly. Even the rental market for GCBs has gotten really expensive. Rent will soon cost over $37,000 a month for this 5-bedroom good class bungalow in District 21.
You enter the house through the basement.
Remember that 2-story rule? The car park doesn't count as a level.
The stairs here brings you to level 1 of the house. If you look around your neighbors, we are only looking at their roof. Welcome to the inside of the house. The house is about 7,000 square feet. On my left of the house is actually a split level dining area. So the helper's room is outside the kitchen. Most good class bungalows owner, they have more than at least 2 or more helpers because of the size of the house.
The final rule for good class bungalows? Owners generally have to be citizens of Singapore.
Very rarely do they make exceptions. I think except for Sir James Dyson, so they actually make an exception for him to buy a good class bungalow.
You need to have a minimum of $200 million to be able to be qualified to apply for the program.
So often, foreigners in the market for GCBs have to rent. The renter of this property is from China.
It's the son's room. All the bedrooms should have and must have an attached bathroom. We are at the master bedroom now. We call this the walk-in wardrobe. And next to the walk-in wardrobe is actually the attached bathroom.
While this area isn't as expensive as District 10, the land is still valuable. and this home is on the market for nearly $30 million. But what does the rising cost of GCBs mean for the rest of Singapore's citizens?
I think it's also a reflection of how cost of living is increasing in the country. I think that's the most direct reason why people should be concerned.
GCB's rising costs mirror a wider trend across the island. Private properties are getting more expensive.
As a Singapore citizen, I am concerned with the price going up. My concern is it becomes less and less affordable. So it will affect the livelihood of the younger generations.